Tonight, I want to tell you the powerful story behind Jade's Law, a young mum of 4 murdered in her home by her abusive, estranged husband, while their young boys were asleep. He was jailed for Jade's murder, but still holds parental responsibility for the children. Now the impact on her family has inspired a change in the law. Jade's Law will see people who kill their partners automatically lose access to their children.
The fact that Jade's death is going to help families in the future, she'll be proud.
Breaking news tonight on the future of HS2. Sky News understands the trains will go to Manchester and the line will go all the way into central London, but trains will switch onto existing tracks in Birmingham, meaning the high-speed line to Manchester has indeed been scrapped. The diaries of Sir Patrick Vallance, the former chief scientific advisor, are read out at the COVID inquiry, revealing chaos in Downing Street and a flip-flopping Prime Minister. After our shocking report on the conditions facing prison guards, the Justice Secretary has ordered a review of staff safety. Our Home Editor Jason Farrell is going to be here with an update. And what is the best way to catch a thief? The government wants to start looking at our passport photos to clamp down on crime. Is access to that database a good idea, or is it an Orwellian nightmare? That's our debate tonight. Plus, David Beckham defends his role at the Qatar World Cup. Our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer will have all the news from the premiere of his new tell-all documentary. All that to come and more on the UK Tonight. Well, more details about Jade's Law in just a moment. But first, that breaking news that's come into us within the last hour. Sky News understands that HS2 is going to run to Manchester and the line will run all the way into central London. There's a caveat, though. We understand trains are going to switch onto existing tracks from Birmingham. It means the northern leg of the high-speed rail line has indeed been scrapped. Well, the Prime Minister has spent yet another day ducking questions about the future of the project. He could confirm his plans in his speech to the Conservative conference tomorrow. Well, let's get to the heart of the matter, shall we? We'll go straight to conference in Manchester. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is there for us. John, tell us more.
Well, this is a fudge, isn't it? Because the good news for supporters of HS2 is that it will indeed go to the Euston station in central London and not stop at Old Oak Common some miles to the west of London. The bad news is, though, that it won't be high speed all the way to Manchester. Here we are in a grand old railway station, Manchester Central, where they're expecting the Prime Minister tomorrow in his conference speech round about lunchtime to announce this fudge. It's been the talk of conference. It's derailed everything else here this week. So, just to spell out the details, it'll start at Euston, not Old Oak Common, but only be high speed as far as Birmingham. From Birmingham to Manchester, the trains will run on existing track. So it won't be high speed all the way up to Manchester. Now, there is anger already in the last few minutes. This fudge, Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, who is meeting other mayors as we speak, and we hope to hear from Mr Burnham at some point in the next hour or so. He has tweeted this in response to the Sky News story. So, in other words, HS2 won't go to Manchester and people in the north will be treated as second-class citizens again. And he says, what a disgrace. That, the reaction, a very angry one from the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, to what is going to be announced by the PM tomorrow. It's a fudge. It will not satisfy those supporters of HS2 and there'll be a big backlash tomorrow.
John, thank you. More to come on that story throughout the evening here on Sky News. Now, the family of a woman murdered by her husband say they are overjoyed that parental rights laws are about to be changed in her name. Jade Ward was killed by Russell Marsh in 2021, just days after their marriage had broken down. He snuck into her home, stabbed and strangled her while their 4 children slept in their beds. Horrific. But incredibly, this story gets worse. After he was jailed, Marsh was still legally responsible for the children. He was allowed to regularly contact Jade's parents, asking for photos of the children and their school reports. He had control over where they could travel, what medical treatment they could receive, and he used that power over Jade's grieving family repeatedly. Well, now the government says it will introduce Jade's law, automatically stripping people who kill their spouse of any parental rights. Earlier, I spoke to Jade's parents, Karen and Paul, who have campaigned relentlessly for this change. As her next of kin, her mum and dad, of course, the boys came to you and you would have wanted to shield them from what had happened, protect them, concentrate on looking after them, but you couldn't do that because of the parental rights that Russell Marsh still had. Talk to me about what that was like.
Right, well, the boys are with family, close family, but knowing that he had parental responsibility, it was just, you know, horrendous, to be honest, you know, knowing that, you know, that, like, he could still, you know, he could ask questions and he could send messages and he could goad us and he could ask for silly things that, like, he knew we didn't have. He wanted the boys to be took away from Jade's family and placed into care. According to Marsh, this is all Jade's fault. This is all Jade's fault and Jade's
And the law as it
fault.
stands enables him to make those requests, to have a say in where the children live, what schools they go to, what kind of medical treatment they can have, school reports. What was that like for you as a family?
Terrible, terrible. It was just another kick down.
Another way of him controlling from in prison.
Going to court every time you want to fight a decision that's made by the father of the children, but who murdered their mothers. As you said, time-consuming, expensive. I would imagine the mental toll on your family. You can't even put that into words. And just to put it into context for our viewers, you know, only a handful of people in this country have actually had parental responsibility taken away from them when they have committed crimes such as Jade's former partner did. You've obviously found this a massive relief, and this will help families who are going through what you're going through. Talk to me about what this means to you as a family. How are the boys? Because at the end of the day, you're doing this for them.
Yeah, the boys are doing really well. I mean, really well. You know, they're in a strong, supportive, loving family. They talk about Jade all the time, you know, they talk about their mum all the time. But us as a family, you know, the fact that Jade's death is going to help families in the future, she'll be proud.
It's just been so difficult for us to keep dragging this up, you know, being on TV, and it's been so hard, but the outcome is for the boys and for everyone else, and it's actually happened. It's just blown us away.
We are doing this so no other family have to go through the pain, the hurt, the upset, the stress, the trauma of having to deal with losing Jade anyway, but then having to deal with worrying, what's he going to do now or what's he going to say now? And the fact that early next year, no family will ever have to worry about that. You know, no family will have to sit there day in, day out and be really concerned, you know, that, like, he might get his own way and have the boys taken away from their family.
Well, Karen and Paul, it is...
You know...
Karen and Paul, this is a huge achievement. This measure, Jade's law, is going to be introduced to Parliament as part of the Victim and Prisoners Bill. Jade would be immensely proud of both of you. It's been long. It's been exhaustive. It's been upsetting. But you've got there. Thank you so much for talking to us about Jade's law.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Christ, simply an incredible achievement in Jade's name. Karen Paul and Jade's wider family never gave up in their campaign to change that law, and now finally they can start to move on, and so too can so many other families as a result of what they've done. Dear Diary, Number 10 is in chaos and Mr Johnson is flip-flopping. The diaries of the former chief scientific advisor have revealed what he and other key figures really thought during the UK's fight against COVID. Sir Patrick Vallance's notes were read out at the start of the second module of this COVID inquiry, which will look at the decisions that were made by the government between January 2020 and February last year. Sir Patrick's diaries speak of ministers using scientific experts as human shields and an official who completely rewrote advice on social distancing, which Sir Patrick called extraordinary. Emma Birchley has more from central London.
It was my dad who I lost during COVID.
I lost my lovely husband.
I lost my father to COVID in April 2020.
The powerful stories of those still suffering set the scene for the second stage of the COVID inquiry. As bereaved families gathered outside, inside it wasn't long before astonishing revelations began emerging of exchanges at the heart of government.
On Friday the 13th of March, a senior cabinet official comes through to number 10 from the cabinet office to tell officials, I think this country's headed for disaster. I think we're going to kill thousands of people.
This too from the government's chief scientific advisor.
Sir Patrick Vallance notes in his evening notes, number 10, chaos as usual. On Friday, the 2-metre rule meeting made it abundantly clear that no one in number 10 or the cabinet office had really read or taken time to understand the science advice on 2 metres. Quite extraordinary.
And there was more.
On the 12th of March, a text from Mr Cummings read, we've got big problems coming. The cabinet office is terrifyingly no plans, totally behind the pace. We must announce today, not next week. If you feel ill with cold or flu, stay home.
The first evidence was heard back in June of last year. That stage focused on how prepared the UK was for the pandemic. Now it's the decisions made by the government which are under scrutiny. With the speed at which ministers acted in the early months of 2020, described by the inquiry's lead lawyer as of central importance. And it's the evidence of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson that those protesting outside the inquiry are waiting to hear, as well as that from the likes of Matt Hancock, Rishi Sunak and Dominic Cummings. For Rivka Gottlieb, who lost her father, there's frustration that only one bereaved witness is to give evidence during this stage of the inquiry.
There is crucial detail that will be missed by not hearing from stories on the ground. And we're not talking about a massive number of witnesses. We're talking about a proportionate number, of a handful, if necessary, in every module.
But the chair of the inquiry insisted those voices will be heard. There's plenty of time. It'll be more than 6 years after the first lockdown when the inquiry finally concludes. Before then, there are sure to be further revelations. Painful not only for the families, but politically for the government too. Emma Birchley, Sky News, Central London.
Now, nobody wants an election. That's what the Prime Minister says anyway. Speaking to Sky News earlier, Rishi Sunak insisted he's not afraid of going to the polls, but he wants to get on with his job and deliver on his plans. He rejected claims that the Conservative conference has descended into chaos. Our political editor, Beth Rigby, reports from Manchester.
Hi, Rishi, very nice to see you. How are you?
The PM out meeting and greeting this morning, here to win over a conference crowd.
Hello, hi.
Ahead of a set of TV interviews, this a man pitching for a 5th Tory term who really needs a little luck. The point is, at this conference, you are a man without a mandate. You haven't got a mandate from the country. You haven't got a mandate from your own party. If you were really serious about the long term, why don't you just go to the country?
Because that's not what the country wants. That's
They
not,
don't want an election.
I go out and about every day. That is not what anybody wants. What people want is the politicians making a difference to their lives. I think the British people are completely and squarely behind my approach to net zero. They think it's the right long thing for the country.
You're afraid of an election
Not
because
at all.
you'll
I'm
lose.
just getting on and delivering for people.
Next party conference, will you still be here as Prime Minister?
Yeah, we've got lots to get on and deliver.
OK, so you're going to be Prime Minister after the next
Yeah,
election?
of course, I'm working very hard to deliver for the country, Beth.
Away from conference, voters in the Conservative-held marginal of Reading West disagree. They say they are ready to go to the polls.
We're well overdue for a general election, definitely. We've had 13 years of a Tory government and I've just seen the country decline.
I think it's got to happen because I think it allows people to literally say what they want.
I think there needs to be some sort of shake-up, yes. It's just been the same old.
I would like to see Suella Braverman. If it comes to that, she's the woman I would like to see run the country.
Right on cue by the afternoon, the Home Secretary was up, on stage, stealing the show and stealing the narrative. This fast becoming the pattern of Conservative conference.
I know they've tried to make me into a hate figure because I tell the truth.
The hall packed with the Tory party faithful who once backed Liz Truss and now feel this woman's willing to say exactly what they're thinking.
One of the most powerful forces reshaping our world is unprecedented mass migration. The wind of change that carried my own parents across the globe in the 20th century was a mere gust compared to the hurricane that is coming.
This speech was billed as Suella Uncut, and activists liked what they saw. This a politician who makes no secret of her leadership ambitions and can spur the base in a way that Rishi Sunak cannot.
After a bumpy 3 days, the PM won't be relaxing tonight. Tomorrow he's got a difficult job, delivering a speech to this party membership who didn't even want him as their leader, before he even tries to go to the country. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Manchester.
Well, in that speech today, the Home Secretary accused some immigrants of not embracing British values and living parallel lives to the rest of the country. Suella Braverman, who was criticised last week for suggesting multiculturalism has failed, said she would be fearless in identifying problems with integration. Our correspondent, Inzamam Rashid, has spoken to 3 people from 3 different backgrounds from the same area of Manchester, just down the road from where the Tories are holding their conference, to see if they agree with her.
If I look around my congregation on a Sunday morning, 60% of my people here have not been born in this country. The whole spectrum of people here gathered together in one place, worshipping together and living together in a community.
Can you understand why people would be hurt by what she had to say?
I think you need to experience multiculturalism to understand it. I mean, as a church here in Levenshulme, we're on fantastic relationships with our neighbouring mosque. We get together, we eat together, the food is amazing, we open our different scriptures up together, and we just can engage with each other on a real personal level. I guess if you've not experienced that, there may be something to be afraid of, but actually when you engage, there's just such richness to be here.
I don't think this country, without multiculturalism, it would be firm because there are so many different backgrounds, different culture, different religion. And how would a country stand on its own without different culture? So it brings peace, it brings joy.
Do you think multiculturalism is what makes Britain today?
100%, 100%.
I think multiculturalism is what defines us as a society. We learn from one another, we live together in harmony.
Hearing the Home Secretary say that multiculturalism in Britain has failed, how did that make you feel?
First of all, I thought it was quite ironic for someone who is also a child of a migrant, led by a government that is run by the child of a migrant, who are essentially evidence that multiculturalism hasn't failed, to then come out and say the opposite was quite contradictory. And I think it's pretty obvious that it was almost like an intellectual attempt to rationalise racism and actually divert away from the real issues that the country is facing at the moment. Multiculturalism certainly isn't the issue that we're facing.
Inzamam Rashid there talking to people in Manchester. Now, yesterday, the UK Tonight brought you a shocking report on the dangers that are faced by guards at one of the UK's newest prisons. 3 prison officers telling our home editor, Jason Farrell, that they fear a guard at HMP 5 Wells will be killed if steps aren't taken to ensure their safety. Well, in response to that report last night, the Justice Secretary told Sky News Today that he has ordered a review of conditions at that prison. Here's Jason's update.
Already, 3 prison officers from Five Wells in Northamptonshire have told Sky News of serious safety concerns, warning that life inside this brand new super jail is chaotic, violent, and officers lack functioning equipment and experience. Several others have since got in touch, including one former officer we'll call Mary.
So why did you leave Five Wells?
For safety reasons. I didn't feel safe. The staffing levels were risky and the corruption that went on. I didn't feel safe working with the colleagues because I didn't know who was corrupt and who wasn't.
Like the other whistleblowers, Mary believes corrupt officers were bringing in drugs and says a system that allows certain prisoners privileges to move between the blocks was being exploited.
I suspect they're the ones moving the drugs to and from each landing. They feel that they have the say over the prison, whereas it should be run by the prison officers and not the prisoners.
And responding to claims that officers' equipment is faulty, such as body-worn cameras, the Justice Secretary is demanding answers from G4S, who are contracted to run the prison.
Now, if there is concerns about those not working, they should be working. They should be repaired.
Are you going to look into this?
Oh, yes. No, I've already given instructions to senior leadership to look into this precise thing as a result of this.
As a result of Jason's piece?
As a result of Jason's piece.
Relatives of prisoners have also been in touch. Their emails include, "My husband is a resident in Five Wells. A lot of the illegal items have and are being brought in by the staff. My son is in Five Wells, and on his first chance of calling me, he told me the prison was run by the prisoners. He's told me about staff being attacked. My son is currently in there, and it's a wonder no one has died, yet. Drugs, alcohol, weapons, flick knives and mobile phones are rife. Serious criminals are running the place."
We're like teachers, counsellors, peacekeepers.
Last week, this national advert was launched for new recruits, but across the service there are concerns about senior officers leaving. Ministry of Justice figures show a third of full-time staff have less than 3 years' experience.
Some of the prisoners have been in jail for longer than some staff members have even been alive and are even having to tell staff members what they ought to be doing. Well, in some cases that can be absolutely fine, but there is an inherent risk with prisoners telling staff what they ought to be doing.
G4S says the safety of staff and prisoners is our #1 priority, and we do not tolerate violence. Managers take swift and robust action when serious incidents do happen. We have sufficient levels of staffing to run a stable, consistent and safe regime. The majority of our employees have more than 12 months' experience, and we have a large group of officers on secondment from other G4S prisons. Our dedicated officers work tirelessly to detect, intercept and confiscate contraband through a range of measures, including the use of patrol and drug protection dogs, joint operations with Northamptonshire Police and HMPPS counter-corruption colleagues. They say they're committed to supporting and caring for their staff. Jason Farrell, Sky News.
Well, Jason is here in the studio with me. Jason, a quick response to last night's special report. An investigation being launched into Five Wells as a result, and we seem to know what problems, the investigation will find: overcrowding, understaffing. But the big question is Five Wells an isolated case, or is this symptomatic of bigger issues in the wider prison system?
I mean, I think everyone knows there are bigger issues in the wider system, and we've had Alex Chalk today, the Justice Secretary, saying that they're looking at even hiring out other prisons abroad to deal with the potential overcrowding problem that is down the line. We're expecting the prison population to increase. You saw there was an advert to try and get people to join up, to sign up. There is quite a big drop-off rate in the prison service at the moment. It's gone up a bit. Also, there's this drop and decline in experience within the prison service, and therefore you get people coming in and they're shadowing people who aren't very experienced themselves, and that's not very good for the system, and that's what a lot of people are telling us. Add to that, you don't really get to see much of what's going on in the prison system. And I think that's what's really interesting about this. Here we've had now 4 people who've come out and risked their jobs to speak to us, to tell us what life is like in there from the perspective of a prison officer. And they are doing it because they do not feel safe. 2 of the people we spoke to have left their jobs, one saying they just wanted to be able to come home and know that they were going to be able to come home to their children. That's how scared they are. going onto those landings, the feeling that they're on there on their own, sometimes dealing with 60 men, and these are female officers, sometimes they get sexual intimidation. They're seeing a lot of violence. They're seeing a lot of disruption. There's a lot of drugs coming into the prison. That's another problem that we know about, which is a problem within the prison service. So I'm sure that these issues aren't just for Five Wells, but if they are going to recruit people, if these adverts are going to work, they do need to make sure that those prison officers are safe. These stories need to change, and they need to get that message across. This is, they are going to get these officers into a situation where when they go onto those landings, they have the equipment and they have the backup and support.
OK, Jason, thank you. Our Home Editor, Jason Farrell there. Thanks a lot. So to come on the UK tonight, a rally between royals. The Prince and Princess of Wales visit Cardiff and they take each other on in a game of ping-pong after meeting Windrush elders to mark Black History Month. Police could get access to the passport database to help catch shoplifters and other criminals. So tonight we're asking, will it help curb crime or is it a violation of our privacy? Well, you can get in touch with your thoughts, scanning the QR code on your screen right now. And trying to make a speedy getaway. Dashcam footage shows the moment a lamppost brought a high-speed car chase through the streets of Swansea to a rather abrupt end.
I'm Inzamam Rashid and I'm Sky's North of England correspondent, telling stories from this culturally rich region I call home.
If the Taliban found your family, what would happen?
I think they're just going to straight away execute them.
There are issues of racism in all levels of cricket.
I was on the balcony a couple of times. I was nearly gone.
Football is a joy to watch. When people are disappointed, you can feel the hate.
I've always tried to put people at the heart of the story, like hearing from young women who've been spiked via injections.
I just felt physically sick. That's really in my system.
Men, they want to force you doing something which you don't want to do, just because you're homeless.
We give a voice to communities often unheard and unserved from a region with a distinct history and global impact.
The five of us have made it out of the car.
Welcome to Backstage, the film and TV podcast.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching the UK Tonight. Here's what's coming up. David Beckham defends his role as an ambassador for the Qatar World Cup. Hear what he had to say at the premiere for his new Netflix docuseries. We'll bring you the 12 best places in the UK to spend your retirement, and some of them might surprise you. Well, let's take a look at some of the stories making news around the UK tonight. A 12-year-old boy is in a critical condition in hospital after being hit by lightning at a school football match in Hertford. He was knocked off his feet before being treated by medics on the pitch alongside a man in his 50s who was also injured. Well, the boy was taken to Adam Brooks Hospital in Cambridge, the incident taking place during a tournament at the Selly School, where the head teacher has thanked the emergency services and staff for their quick response to the incident. In Croydon, a trial date has been set for the teenager accused of murdering 15-year-old schoolgirl Eliane Andam. Eliane was stabbed to death on her way to school in Croydon, South London, last week. The 17-year-old boy accused of killing her, who can't be identified because of his age, will face trial in spring next year. Let's head to Cardiff now. The Prince and Princess of Wales marked the start of Black History Month there earlier. The couple met with cheers from school children as they arrived at the Grange Pavilion near the city centre. They met people from the Windrush Cymru Elders and Ethnic Minority Youth Forum. And they had a bit of time to go head-to-head in a game of doubles table tennis. And a dramatic high-speed car chase in Swansea between two suspected drug dealers and police ended rather abruptly as their getaway car got upended between a lamppost and an unmarked police car. This dashcam footage was released by South Wales Police, and it shows the white car speeding away from officers before getting wedged as it attempted to squeeze between another car and a lamppost. The chase took place in May this year. 21-year-old Arif Ali and 20-year-old Tanvir Ali were arrested after cocaine and heroin with a street value in excess of £11,000 was found inside their cars. Just a bit of breaking news to bring you from slightly further afield. This is news coming out of Italy tonight. The mayor of Venice says at least 20 people have been killed in a bus crash. There's very little detail at the moment, but we'll keep you posted on that breaking news. There'll be more, I'm sure, coming up at 9 o'clock here on Sky News. But this is the latest picture that's come into us. At least 20 dead after this bus crash. That's been confirmed by the mayor of Venice. We await more details. Still to come on the UK tonight, police could get access to your passport photos. The database is going to be opened up potentially to catch shoplifters and other criminals. So tonight we're asking, will it actually help curb crime, or is it simply a violation of our privacy? Get in touch with your thoughts. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now. And David Beckham tonight has defended his role as an ambassador for the Qatar World Cup. He's been speaking to Sky News about this and much more at the premiere of his Tell-All Netflix documentary. Hello, welcome back to the UK Tonight. It is being reported that our passport photos could be used to catch criminals. Ministers apparently want to compare CCTV, doorbell cameras and dashcam footage with government databases. That includes passports. It's in order to help curb crime, catch people like shoplifters, burglars and bike thieves. Well, civil liberty groups are saying it's a worrying move towards mass surveillance, calling the plans an Orwellian nightmare. So tonight we are asking, what's more important, stopping crime or protecting our privacy? If you want to get involved, you can use the QR code on your screen to have your say. Well, joining us now, Emmanuel Andrews, Policy and Campaigns Manager at the National Council of Civil Liberties, and Dal Babu, former Chief Superintendent with the Metropolitan Police. Good evening to you both.
Good evening.
First of all, Dal, I'll come to you. How would this be useful for police? And presumably there would be strict rules and parameters within which something like this could be used.
There would be. In terms of how useful it would be, I mean, my passport photo looks nothing like me. It was taken 9 years ago. So I think there's some practical issues here around the accuracy of images. But I think it's important to have checks and balances, but it's not unusual for different government agencies to share information to stop fraud, prevent crime, and that happens already. I think what's important is to have appropriate checks and balances in place.
Emmanuel, a lot of people have been getting in touch with us here at Sky News saying they're surprised that this doesn't happen already, and saying, you know, if this helps to fight crime, it should be allowed. If you've done nothing wrong, then there's no problem with viewing photos to find a person who committed a crime. Why are you so against it?
We're against these proposals because they are a really frightening development. It's a huge expansion of the government and the police's ability to spy on us, each and every one of us, as we go about our daily lives. We've seen this time and time again. The government use any social issue of the day to justify an expanded surveillance regime. And I think we have to see it for what it is. It's an attempt to distract us from their own failures in the lead up to the general election. And the reality is that tech won't solve our societal structural issues, and certainly not dodgy tech that is renowned for misidentifying people and will ultimately sweep countless people into the criminal justice system. So I think rather than handing the police more powers as we go about our daily lives, the government should be ensuring that families can pay their rent and feed their children, not giving the police technology that throws all our rights under the bus.
Yeah. You're right that it won't, you know, solve the root causes of crime. I mean, you're correct on that. But, you know, what would you say to the victims of crime who want justice for crimes committed against them, who, in the case of burglaries, for example, have things that, you know, aren't just expensive, but have huge personal value to them, and they might want to see them returned? You know, there's a lot of emotion caught up in this. What would you say to them?
Absolutely. I have immense empathy for shop workers that are having to deal with this problem day in and day out, and for people that have been harmed by these issues. But unfortunately, we're being presented with a solution that doesn't even work. We know how this technology is unreliable. And of course, people need to be safe at work, in their homes, but a gross invasion of our privacy is simply not the answer. And I think what we really need to see here is to look at the bigger picture. The root causes of crime are often due to poverty, they're due to inequality, government inaction. We need to make sure that we're responding to those root causes rather than throwing all of our rights under the bus for a quick fix that ultimately won't work and will harm countless people in the process.
Well, it does seem that quite a lot of people getting in touch with here at Sky News agree with these proposals. Mike on social media said, I assume that, you know, this was already something police did. It makes sense to me. And Dean adds, they should be able to use anything possible to catch criminals. Philip, however, a different view. He says, using facial recognition technology to cross-reference the passport database to try and identify alleged criminals, will need very robust independence and transparency before it goes live. Dal, I'll come to that last comment and I'll put it to you. And Emmanuelle touched on it there in her comment. You know, she talked about the police spying on us. There's an issue with police and trust at the moment. How could they reassure the public that they're not spying on us? This isn't mass surveillance. This is just to catch criminals.
Well, I think Emmanuel's right, and I think the difficulty is there is a concern about trust in the police, and it's, in fact, trust in the police has never been lower. It's the lowest level it's ever been, and among certain communities, for example, black communities, it's even lower than the general community. So I understand that concern. I think maybe people will be surprised, but at the moment, you know, government agencies do share data. And they do share information and intelligence. In some ways, it's a step up from the insurance companies. When any of us who've had house insurance or car insurance, we'll see a little sign saying, "Please note we share information with other agencies." So organisations do share information. What we have seen is the huge problem with shoplifting, and I think. What we're seeing is more and more shop workers being injured and hurt, more people seeing shoplifting going on. I myself have seen individuals just going in and helping themselves to bags. And in fact, I felt so infuriated, I actually ended up detaining a couple of suspects and taking the items away from them. But the shop workers didn't get involved. They just watched, thanked me, and then carried on with their work.
Yeah.
So there is a huge problem at the moment.
It's not worth risking their safety, is it? We've heard some awful stories about what have happened to shop workers when they've tried to stop shoplifters. So police, if they can't get there, perhaps thinking of this tool as a way to make their job a little bit easier. We know they're stretched. Emmanuelle, just a final thought from you on this. Dal saying, you know, with a lot of organisations, this kind of information search already happens.
I think the reality here is that this is an increase in capacity for the police to have access to really sensitive personal biometric data. There's actually a complete step change in what we have right now. And if we actually dig into the data that's being proposed here, the Police National Database has been found to hold hundreds of thousands of people unlawfully on that database. Let's move on to the fact that we're using passport data. We consented to our data being used for travel purposes. We have no ability to object if these proposals go ahead. And I think this actually speaks to a wider question of whether the police will even be able to lawfully use our passport data without contravening data protection legislation.
Okay.
Then there are the proposals around using people's doorbell cameras. And I think we really have to question here, is this a society we want to live in? And are we willing to give away our really important human rights for the
Emmanuelle, on that wider question, we'll have to leave it there because we've run out of time. But you've made some really good points tonight, both of you, Emmanuelle Andrews and Dal Babu, talking about police potentially having access to the UK passport database to catch criminals. Right, he is one of the most famous men on the planet, making headlines across the globe for almost 30 years. He is a UK icon. Now David Beckham is continuing to make headlines as he premieres his new Netflix documentary. He's been speaking to our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer on the red carpet. Beckham defending his role as ambassador for the Qatar World Cup. He said he was proud of the work he did.
For you, it's been a cycle throughout your career of at times being sort of held up so highly, being vilified as well, and having to deal with these things. Can I ask you about last year as well, and whether you were upset with the reaction that you got in the press for Qatar and your decision to be an ambassador?
No, I think at the end of the day, you know, I whatever partnership I go into, whatever I go into within the business, we always do our homework on everything. You know, to be involved in another World Cup, for me, was important. I've always said that football is a game that should be shared around the world. This was an opportunity for another nation to get, you know, for the Arab world to get a World Cup and to host one of the biggest, if not the biggest, sporting events in the world. Once we were there, we knew that there was going to be people that were going to either talk about it a little bit more or let the football do the talking. And I think it was a great tournament. A lot of people were happy there. No one came up to me. I had a lot of conversations with the LGBTQ people when I was there, community when I was there, and they said they'd been treated perfectly fine. They'd enjoyed the games. They felt it was the safest World Cup that they'd had for a long time. So no, at the end of the day, it was an important competition and one that I was proud to be part of.
Oh, Katie's with me in the studio now, fresh from the red carpet. Well done for asking that question, because I feel like that was an important one around the Qatar World Cup, and we didn't really hear from David Beckham about it at the time. And this is a man we feel like we know really well. What do we learn about him that's new in this documentary?
This documentary is fascinating on many levels, really, because, of course, we all think we know the Beckhams. They are one of the most photographed couples in the world. They have been for the last 2 decades, but rarely do we actually hear them speak. This was 50 hours worth of interviews with David Beckham, effectively setting the record straight on some of the things that we think we know him for, but actually we never heard him talk about. And I asked him actually before that whether or not he felt this was a case of setting the record straight. And he kind of said that, well, people haven't heard him talk about things like the red card he received in the 1998 World Cup, but he didn't see it as setting the record straight. But that very much actually is the sort of vibe that you get from this. It is very much him going into detail in this documentary about things like how he was post-1998 in that red card. Vilified, absolutely vilified. He was spat at the street. He had to be escorted to the toilet when he was out in public. His car would be banged on. The huge amount of abuse he got back then. And he is someone, of course, who has had almost sort of peaks and troughs of how he's been seen within the public eye. Vilified, certainly, again, last year for the whole Qatar issue and him taking millions of pounds for some of them.
OK, well, looking forward to seeing that one. Keeping Up with the Beckhams. I wonder if they'll make another series out of it. OK, thanks very much, Katie. Coming up on the UK tonight, looking for somewhere to retire? We'll bring you the top places across the UK to settle down after you've stopped working. And coming up in the sport, we'll find out what really went on in the VAR room for Liverpool's controversially disallowed goal against Spurs at the weekend. All of that coming up with Teddy in the studio next.
The counter-offensive is going as planned.
Is it going as planned?
Well, as much as we can have it going as planned with the amount of weapons and the quality of the ammunition that we're getting. The steadier the deliveries and the bigger the deliveries of the armaments for Ukraine, the faster the counter-offensive can go.
That's the problem is you've regained, what, less than 1% of the ground that you lost before the invasion?
Unfortunately, that is the case.
And you only have, like, another month to go before?
Another month or so before the cold and the winter settles in, before we can before we will have to actually pause until the springtime. And this is the sad news for us, and I think not just for us, but all the countries that are supporting Ukraine right now. It is getting harder and harder because Russia is winning the battle of a protracted conflict today.
So they are winning?
In terms of protracted conflict strategies that they're trying to impose on Ukraine and the world. Unfortunately, we have to say that they are gaining the upper hand yet again. They have done this back in 2014. The lessons weren't learned. The aid was being delivered too slowly and at a non-stable rate, and this is the results that we are getting. I am a firm believer that Russia could have been stopped with their escalation of the aggression in February 2022, when Ukraine was asking for weapons through January, through October, November, December 2021, but was not being taken seriously, and when the offer on the table for us Ukrainians was to surrender to Putin's demands. It's unrealistic for these elections to go ahead. These elections will tear Ukraine's unity apart. We are a democratic country. We have an elected parliament in a free and fair election with international observers who were present in 2019. Right now, would international observers come to Ukraine to witness the elections happening in the battlefield?
But other countries have had elections during wartime, haven't they? Not least this one.
Not least this one, but under which conditions was the warfare going on the ground? How we have many questions for which we are still seeking the answers. I'm for elections. I would love for Ukraine to hold free and fair elections that would be deemed free and fair by international observers. But I, for one, am also certain that hardly any international observers will be willing to come to Ukraine to witness these elections.
Teddy's here in the studio with me for the sport. And Teddy, just last night on the programme, we were talking about how amazing it would have been to be a fly on the wall in the VAR room at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium during the decision about Liverpool's disallowed goal. We were just talking about that, and today, for tonight's show, we've got the audio of what happened. Let's take a listen.
Wait. The on-field decision was offside. Are you happy with this?
Yeah.
Are you happy with this?
Offside goal, yeah. That's what it does.
What? On-field decision was offside. Are you happy with this image? Yeah, it's onside. The image we gave him is onside.
Left back. He's gone offside.
Delay the game. Stop the game.
They've restarted the game.
Yeah, they've restarted. Yeah.
Can't do anything.
No.
I can't do anything. I can't do anything.
I mean, Teddy, what a listen that is. I've listened to it about 3 or 4 times already. Liam Gallagher on social media tonight saying that commentary is better than the moon landing commentary. I mean, this is box office stuff for sports fans.
Yeah, we work in communication, but it was just incredible, wasn't it? The fact that the VAR did rightly conclude it was onside, but then there was a miscommunication. Referee thought it was offside, carried on, and then VAR realises, and those moments of panic.
I know, the irony, human error for a system that's meant to rule out human error. It was human error that got it wrong in the next place. I mean, it's incredible, that audio, and we're going to be talking about it more throughout the evening here on Sky News. What's been the reaction so far?
Well, PGMOL have said off the back of this that they are going to review the process. They're going to look at the accuracy of communication, reinforce that. They're going to talk about how they communicate, perhaps the language, simplicity of language to correct that, and also the VAR and the assistant VAR, who we heard they're hastily trying to correct the decision, will have a conflab before they go back to the on-field referees. So that's what's happened so far. Busy night of sport elsewhere as well.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
I'm Ross Connolly, I'm a Team Scotland wrestler and I'll be competing in 65 kilo weight class in Birmingham.
My name's Charlie Bowling, I compete in the 74 kilo weight class in freestyle wrestling for Team England.
So guys, you're going to teach us the basics of wrestling. What's the first thing you've got to do as soon as you enter the wrestling mat?
So the first thing you do, you want to be in your wrestling stance, so knees bent, nice and low.
Right leg forward, or does it matter?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
If your strongest leg's your right, I'd have your right leg forward.
Yeah.
You want your arms in front of you
Yeah.
to protect your legs. And when you start the match, the first thing you do is shake hands with your opponent.
Good luck.
You too.
Be gentle.
Okay, so technique that we're going to show you is a double leg attack. So a double leg attack is right leg forward, big step, your knee's going to go down, grab behind the knees, right forward.
Stance forward.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Right, let's take a quick look at the weather.
Warm memories wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
This weekend, unseasonably warm conditions. Before then, temperatures around average for early October. A scattering of blustery showers this evening, some of them heavy. The southern and eastern parts will be mainly dry. You can expect further showers in the windy west overnight. But parts of Scotland will see more general rain moving in later. Elsewhere, largely dry. Clear skies allowing it to turn a little chilly in places. Much of Scotland will see rain tomorrow morning, which will extend into the far north of both Ireland and Northern Ireland as well.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Now, before we go, just time to tell you about the best places in the UK to spend your retirement. This is according to the Consumer Group, which some of the places might come as a bit of a surprise. Wrexham makes it onto the list, thanks to its proximity to areas of natural beauty, such as the Dee Valley. Perhaps less surprising, the Outer Hebrides, famed, of course, for their stunning coastlines, and apparently they are enjoying a high density of GP surgeries. Well, joining me now, Kate MacLeod, Marketing Officer for Outer Hebrides Tourism. Really good to talk to you tonight. Why should people from the UK retire to the Outer Hebrides. What's the draw?
Well, where to start with that? It's not surprising at all to me that we're on that list. And really, for all ages, the Outer Hebrides are a haven. It's such a different pace to everywhere else. It's a very slow pace of life, and everything is very natural. You're very connected to the environment around you and the sea because we're surrounded by it. But the sense of community is so strong as well. So I think these are some of the really poignant parts of living in the Outer Hebrides. And you're surrounded by beauty wherever you go. Almost every village in the islands is right by the ocean. And we are known as being some of the friendliest people in Britain. And I know some of these things, it's quite hard to take in unless you come here. But to me and to everyone who does come here, they can absolutely understand that there's something really, really special about the Outer Hebrides.
Oh, Kate, I could just talk to you all day. The way you're selling it, you make it sound so special. I can hear it in your voice, and those pictures are gorgeous as well. And I know you're a wild swimmer, and that's one of the big attractions for people there. I mean, could be a hobby in retirement, right?
Absolutely. Never too late to start.
Oh, well, I have just told everyone in the weather report that it's raining in Scotland over the weekend, so sorry about that. But I suppose if you're in the water, it doesn't matter anyway. Kate McLeod, thank you. That's all from the UK tonight. You can catch up on the highlights on our webpage. See you tomorrow.